Today on the Videomaker podcast, we talk all about video production in the age of COVID-19. This is our second coronavirus-themed episode, and our goal here is not to make something that's, overly dark or depressing. I think we did a pretty good job here. We have a tone of optimism, and we discuss a number of things, including the technique and the technology behind, producing a safe video production when there's a pandemic outside. As always, if you've been listening to the podcast and you enjoy it, we would love it if you went to iTunes and gave us a 5-star review and hit the subscribe button. If you're a Spotify user, go there and just hit the subscribe button. No 5 stars to click on. But enough with that stuff. Let's get on with the show. Welcome to the Videomaker podcast. I'm Mike Wilhelm, and with me, as always, to my left is Haley LaPlante.
Hello.
And to my right is Chris Monlux.
Hello.
And I don't know if we ever figured out screen left or screen right, but it's real life left and right.
Yeah, you don't get to see the room, but that's how we get introduced.
That's right.
I'm always right.
Actually, we're in a circle, right? So I should say to my clockwise or counterclockwise. Is that how that works?
Or you could possibly just say, and Haley Plant, not LaPlante, not have the direction.
Maybe.
You could say your north.
I could do that.
To your north, to your south.
Yeah. It's a holdover from the old days when we used to do the webcasts and it was live and we were like sitting in a row.
Yeah.
But at any rate, haven't done that in a while. Okay, so let's see. We're going to talk about, coronavirus part 2. But first, I'm just curious if anyone saw any movies in the last week.
I saw The Irishman this weekend.
For the first time?
For the first time, yeah. I haven't had, it's kind of longer, so I haven't had a whole lot of time. And then, you gotta it's a little bit slower, so I had to have the right mood to do it. And but it was really, I read an article about the de-aging and aging of the characters that made me think I want to watch this and see if that's distracting. And it only was when I was thinking of relative age to the actor, what's their actual age? Which one of these is just normal? And then I realized that's probably good enough.
Did you know that there was going to be full of CG when you started watching it?
Yes. Yeah. But not, some of it, I guess. It's just, and it's subtle, I guess. It's just smoothing out faces and that kind of thing. But it was never distracting in the way of it didn't look right.
Yeah. So for anyone who hasn't seen it or doesn't know anything about it, it's young Robert De Niro and Joe Pesci. Yeah. As in, it's them acting. I believe it's them acting, but they use CG to make them look younger.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, Chris or Haley. You mentioned off podcast that you haven't seen it, but have you seen the trailers by chance?
I remember seeing the trailers when it first came out, but I never saw it.
Well, at any rate, I don't know about either of you guys. I don't think the CG was that good. I found it kind of distracting because it was through the whole dang thing.
Well, and the big thing for me was I know what they looked like when they were younger. They were on screen then, and it didn't necessarily look like that. The thing I noticed was actually the old man walk, was there even when they were younger.
Oh, yeah.
Their swagger was more of an older, they carried themselves a little differently.
Yeah.
But I was really trying to figure out, what are the things that are distracting to this. The story, I followed the story fine, and it wasn't distracting and I didn't enjoy the movie or anything, but.
You didn't enjoy it?
No, I did. Totally enjoyed it.
Another movie that does that is Gemini Man with Will Smith.
I haven't seen that one. Is that the one where he's a superhero? No.
He's not, he's like a super kind of secret agent type of character.
Is that when he's
But it's his younger self. He got cloned. And it's his younger self that's trying to kill him. But they did that effect.
Yeah.
And it was actually pretty good, I thought, in that instance.
Yeah. I haven't seen the movie, but I saw the trailers and I found it pretty convincing.
Yeah, no, it definitely looked real.
Well, and I think the big difference here is Will Smith still looks like himself. He's aged, but he doesn't look too off of the Fresh Prince. Yeah. But if he was in his 60s, you might be used to the way he looks now. I don't know.
Will Smith has hardly aged.
He still looks great.
He's like Rob Lowe. He doesn't.
But that being said, when I saw the trailer for that, I was like, holy cow, that looks like the Fresh Prince on screen.
I feel he did that for another movie as well, Will Smith. I feel like it was maybe the apocalyptic movie that he was by himself.
I Am Legend?
I Am Legend. At the very end, wasn't he the... Spoilers.
Yeah, how old is this movie?
Yeah. But yeah, he appears later transformed, right? like, and it's really, really subtle. It's the shot's only like a second or something.
Yeah, I don't even remember hardly the plot of that movie.
I can't
just
even remember.
that
It's been a long time since I've seen that movie.
I don't remember
dog.
either. Maybe he was being attacked by, I don't
people
know.
in the darkness or something like.
Yeah, because
it
was the whole idea was there was like these vampire monster things, and I think they were zombies. I thought they were like zombie vampires. At any rate, it like kind of revealed at the end. Spoiler alert if you haven't seen this 15-year-old movie, that they were like, you know, the people who used to populate society that had been transformed.
Yeah, it was a
and
plague.
So it was either him or his family or something where they have this encounter, and it was like this oh my gosh kind of moment. But I don't remember. It's been a long time.
I'm pretty sure they used the oh my gosh. It was definitely that's what they said. Oh gosh, Julie Willikers.
A quick movie that you guys should see if you hadn't, which I just thought of on Netflix, is The Old Guard with Charlize Theron.
Oh, well, she's good in everything she does.
It's new, but it's getting a lot of hype, and it's really good. She's like a total, like, bad, you know what I'm saying? Like, kicking butts, and like, it's cool. Watch
Badass.
it. Are we allowed to
This
say
is a
that?
PG-related podcast. You can say the A word.
Just not bad in front of it.
Anyway, she's awesome. She kicks butt. Totally recommend seeing that one on Netflix.
What's it called again?
The Old Guard.
I canceled my Netflix. So,
You did.
yeah.
Why?
I don't like to watch too much TV. So that means I don't want to have too much TV available. So I was like, I got to try Hulu. I don't remember why. I think I want to watch Rick and Morty. So in order to do that, I convinced my wife to let me cancel Netflix. That's how it goes.
So you justified getting rid of one because you wanted another, but the whole idea was that you didn't want either.
No, not that I don't want either. My wife would never let me get away with that, but she likes TV.
Yeah.
But I'd rather have less than more, you know. So we have that and HBO. So I'd rather have 2 than 3.
I'd rather have 5 than 3.
Yeah, then you're getting back into the days of cable, right? Like people were complaining for a long time that you know, they wanted to be able to a la carte choose the channels they want, and now it's like, well, you can kind of do that, and people are like, I want all of them.
Yeah, well, it's because so many of them have fractioned the good stuff off. You know, like it's like Friends on one, The Office is on the other. Like all these ones that people really want to keep in their life, and it's so funny because these are like things that were so overly syndicated for so long.
Yeah.
People just got used to having them. Oh, I can just put on TBS and watch Friends, and now it's like, no, I'll just put on demand and put on Friends or
Not
Peacock
on
or
Netflix
whatever.
anymore.
No, it's
Heartbreaking.
because of Peacock, but
Yep.
you know, distribution deals are the new way to make money. So
Seinfeld's on Hulu. So yeah, there's some bleed over. Anyways, movies. I liked Irishman. It's been a while since I saw it, but I did find the CG distracting.
yeah, well, and it's in kind of like how I felt with what's the Tarantino movie in Hollywood?
Once Upon a Time.
Once Upon a Time
Oh,
in Hollywood.
yeah.
The
Loved it.
revisionist history. I have a hard time with.
It's historical fiction, right?
Yeah, and in this case, you know, they're showing what actually happened to Jimmy Hoffa or whatever. So it's in that case, there's some of it that's like I don't really know, but luckily I don't know that much about Jimmy Hoffa, so I wasn't able to be distracted by how real or not it was. But I thought it was good. You know, I mean, it's always beautiful films. Scorsese films are always amazing, beautiful. So.
I watched 2 documentaries this weekend. One was called 3 Identical Strangers. So
I think I heard about that.
yeah, so it's about these 3 guys who were all adopted as children, and they were triplets separated at birth.
Whoa!
And they just sort of they kind of grew up in the same area, and one thing led to another. And they found each other.
Wow.
And I don't want to give it away, but there's some drama in their separation and how they were separated as children. So that's what the story's about. It was okay. It was okay.
Okay.
It sounds like a compelling story. I mean, like, you imagine being a twin and not knowing it, let alone being a triplet and not knowing it. Like, that's crazy. I mean,
Yeah. Oh well, part of the drama is that they weren't the only ones that this happened to.
that's so bad.
That reminds me of the Spider-Man meme where they're all pointing at each other. Like,
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. So that was okay, and the reason I say it was okay because I think the best documentaries are the ones that are, is a personal preference, I guess, but I like the ones that are current, where afterwards you feel like you need to take action about something. This was like a thing that happened 30 or 40 years ago or 50 years ago, and case closed. So it's interesting.
Yeah, it was an interesting story, but there was no action afterwards or thing that you wanted to.
The other one I watched was called Welcome to Chechnya, which is about the Chechnyan and Russian, I'm going to call it extreme discrimination against LGBTQ people. So, wherever you stand politically on those types of issues, this particular documentary should make you feel like you need to take actions. So the situation over there is like the discrimination is so extreme, the government has basically just said anything goes regarding these people.
Really?
And so bad that the police are like kidnapping people and locking them away, or some people just go missing.
And this is right now.
It's right now, yeah.
Oy.
And so it's this organization that is helping LGBTQ people flee the country. And it's the process. It tells a story of these, several people trying to get out, essentially. But the situation over there is just horrific. Like, people going missing, people being imprisoned or beaten in public. It's pretty insane. But really, really, really important documentary, I feel.
I on the lighter note, watched Jim Jeffries' stand-up, his most recent one on Netflix, and he had a whole big old joke about germaphobes and how they're really bad. I thought that was really kind of funny in the time that he had all these things that would have been funny. I'm like, no, I want to wash my hands now.
About this. People who weren't germaphobes before now are.
Yeah, this was published, I think, in February. It might have been taped back, 19 or whatever. But it was like, oh man, of all the topics you could choose, attacking someone concerned about germs right now is probably not hitting very well. But
timing, right?
But it was still pretty funny, and he's all about offending everyone. So.
Yeah, Jim Jeffries is pretty hilarious. Okay, so Haley, why don't you tell us what the topic is today?
Yeah, so we're talking about keeping production going despite the coronavirus. It's created a lot of limitations, obviously, on production, but that doesn't mean that you can't still be creative and keep things rolling. So
this might be the opportunity you need to be able to secure some work, because you can do it, right? People's expectations have changed. Surely they're not thinking you're going to have this elaborate production with lots of people on set and actors and all the rest. But, with some creativity, you might be able to secure some projects, because people still need production. I mean, we're still making stuff, and everybody's trying to figure out how to do that safely. But this shouldn't be the answer is no. It's going to be, yes, I can do it, but let's figure out how to do it right, or how to do it in the confines of what we're doing. I think that, if you're talking about small teams, it's not terribly hard to keep your distance and those kinds of things. I don't think, unless you're setting up everything, that wearing a mask is going to be terribly difficult or strenuous to the job. It's just going to be able to keep people healthy. And surely, of course, this is from our position here in Northern California, where we're still relatively low infection rate in those places that are super hot. You want to make sure that you're on top of everyone knowing if they're clear or not, and that kind of thing. But,
so this is our second podcast on this topic.
Yeah.
And the first time we talked about it, it was really from the perspective of, hey, everyone's stuck at home now. What do you do? But now productions are trying to get going.
Yeah. I mean, the opportunity to shoot empty streets is over. That's probably not coming back, right? So there's a new normal, kind of, I guess, right?
There is, I guess, a new, hopefully temporary normal. But, until there's a vaccine that's widely available. But we are in a mode now where production needs to happen, I guess, right? And it just can't happen the way it used to happen.
Totally. And I think even like on the side of like documentarian, people have stories that are going on right now that are very compelling, right? This is offering lots of challenges to many and putting people into situations that need to be illuminated. And of course, some that are going to help people understand what's going on, the humanity of it all. I think that's our job as image capture sometimes, is to capture those things. But, the other thing is that we're also going to need plenty of fiction, because lots of people are ingesting fiction and or ingesting content in general right now, right? If it's not to get away, it's because we have too much time or what have you. That I'm finding myself in engaging in more media, sometimes just to keep my mind busy, so that you don't have to concern yourself with those that you don't have control over. And I think that that's a somewhat of a unique time for that. And it's interesting how every place is responding to that. Like I saw an ad on MTV, and they have they're covering I'm trying to think, it's called something ink, black ink maybe, or something like that. But it's a tattoo shop, and they're being shut down because of the virus, and then their stories. And I'm seeing a lot more of like shows where they're going back and forth between people shooting themselves on their phones and telling their stories that way. And, so many more, less polished shots just to tell the story. And I don't think that's bad. It depends on the kind of content you're making. Surely if you're making some kind of beautiful narrative film, it's going to be harder to do that with everybody shooting it themselves. In fact, it might be impossible, but that there's a lot of things that you can do.
Just a side note, MTV still exists.
Totally.
Does it really?
That's
Are
what
they
I was
producing
saying.
new shows?
I don't know.
Speaking of which, guess what's coming back? Beavis and Butthead.
Beavis and Butthead.
No
Yeah,
way.
Beavis and Butthead reboot.
Oh no.
With for Gen Z. But it's interesting. You mentioned people need fiction. You would think that there's plenty of content out there now, right? And it's just not the case. Like, people have this insatiable appetite for visual content, video, animation. It's just unending. Why there seems like there's no reason not to just like, let's dig up all these old TV shows and sitcoms and put them up on the streaming services. Lots of old movies. I know Haley's trying to get into black and white movies, trying to get your boyfriend into black and white movies.
He won't budge. But
Yeah.
I will crack him.
Yet we still have this insatiable appetite for new entertainment, and people will just happily consume it. And at the same time, businesses and organizations rely on video to communicate now.
Yeah. If you can't have someone meeting with someone in person, how are you going to do? What's the thing you can do? It's a video. I mean, that's like the answer, right? Everybody's turning to video for how to keep their meetings, how to communicate, whatnot. And more than just like commercials. This is like communicating the customer service that people would have been experiencing because there's no longer in person.
Yeah.
Or like the idea that every restaurant starts with DoorDash. They're very reliant on that app to look good, them to look good on it, and all those kinds of things. And I think there's lots of space there for more. This weekend we're going camping, and I couldn't find the contact information for the campsite, because why would a campsite have a phone number? And so,
let alone a phone.
Yeah, exactly. And not everything online is available. They're not everything that's there. And like, how great I would love it if the person that is there at the thing had put a video being like, we're open. I'm like, we can keep everybody separate. That kind of thing. It'd be helpful. Instead, we called the forest ranger in the area and said, hey, you driven past there recently? Yeah. Is the gate open? Yeah. Okay. But there's so much need for that communication, and people are needing to connect. And so our ability to communicate with video is going to be important too, because those feelings are going to be harder to be expressed. Like the abundance of joy someone might have when watching or being at a concert, or when you're watching a movie, and that feeling of everybody really together being like, yeah, how do we do that in this world? And that's, I think, the creativity that we have as creators, get to tackle those challenges. And what I hope is that we get some new mediums out of this. I think it's going to be challenging to people, like, how do we do these things? I think, unfortunately, for some of the industry that's tied in, the idea of always having food for people to eat, on location. It's like, you might be able to shoot, but no one wants to share food. That's not good, finger foods or those kinds of things. So there's going to be some industry that's going to have to change and do something different, but others just have to find their stride.
So going off that and what we've said then, what are the kinds of projects that are going to work well for remote production? What do you guys think?
Boy, I think that anything that uses interviews is probably going to work well with remote production. Actually, Chris just recently shot something where he was the director and the shoot was taking place in Los Angeles. He was up here. I don't know how far we are away. 8 hours of drive from Los
700
Angeles.
miles or something like that.
Like 8 hours from LA, yeah.
And really, in a simple interview, we're talking about you could have one person with a camera pointed at another person who's sitting in front of the camera. And depending on how skilled the person in front of the camera is, maybe they could set the camera up themselves. Certainly that's the case if you're using like a webcam or a phone.
Yeah.
The shoot that Chris did, maybe you could describe the setup, Chris. But
so, in this case, like say we were doing the podcast, we'd accept a webcam feed from a nice camera, not nice camera, whatever. But in this case, this is a polished piece. So we needed to have a shooter on site. I needed to have a B camera because we're producing in 4K and need to be able to cut to something. And we might not have all the B-roll we need to cover up edits and that kind of thing. And because it's an interview, we're going to have to remove thought pauses, all those things that will make, that we always want to edify. We want to lift up our interviewers a lot of times to make them well-spoken or make the story clear. So you're going to help clean up their conversational speaking. And so, we have 2 cameras for that. But the nice thing is one of the cameras is going out to a thing called the AJA UTAP. They're like $350 and no power needed. HDMI in converts to USB 2.0. No, 3.0, the blue tip ones. But, normal type A configuration go on your computer, and the computer sees it as a webcam. So any camera can be that. So I was actually able to see the audio levels. I was able to have the audio transferred. So I was able to hear the lavalier and the shotgun mic that was in the shot. I was able to help them with like going, oh yeah, that we need to clear some stuff off this table over here. It's stuff that would be good for a director to come in and make sure that the thing is the way it is. All the lighting and everything was already set up by the DP that was there. But their job was just to make sure the person was in focus, framed up well. And then I was asking questions and, just to make sure that batteries were still charged, that the cameras weren't going to shut off and that the media was offloaded, and we took breaks to do that. But it was actually, for me, that normally does the one-man crew. I would like to be on, I like being on both sides of those. The directing was really nice because I was able to just think about that. I wasn't thinking about the audio level. We have someone monitoring that. I wasn't thinking about the lighting or those kinds of things, or even like, getting home the next day or any of that kind of stuff. I could just focus on getting them to say what I need them to say, or, just making sure that it's produced the way we need it. And then on the other side of it, it'd be really nice to just be the shooter and not have to. So I just have to make this beautiful. I just need to make sure the audio sounds good. I need to make sure the lighting looks good. But when you start to pile all those things on, even though all of them individually might not be terribly difficult, it becomes overwhelming. So it was just nice to, like, all of a sudden we went to something that I normally would actually be me and one other person, that we were able to add a third person in the work. So it was a little bit easier to do. But the nice thing about it is that we were able to get some talent because, quite frankly, everybody needs a little work right now. So we were able to help out a producer that, they're those small indie stuff that they were doing just not being created at the moment. So it was great to be able to get them working.
So in that situation, it's an interview shoot. It wasn't really so much about minimizing the number of people on the set, because it was the same. Normally in a situation like this, it would be Chris and the talent. In this case, it was another shooter and the talent. So same 2 people, or it was just 2 people on set. We were constrained in this case by travel because no one wants to travel, So remote direction, anything that could use remote direction, I think is a possibility. But also other projects that would work pretty well here are anything that doesn't require much of a shoot at all. So if your project can rely a lot on stock media or archival footage, or even frankly a combination of those things with just like Zoom calls, I actually think you could even today create a pretty compelling documentary with archival footage, and Zoom interviews.
Totally. I'm curious that once we get past all this stuff, if it'll be like the era of exception. Like, is it now a green light that on the news, Skype calls are fine? You know, like people doing interviews in their living room instead of coming down to the studio. Is that just going to be part of normal? Like, are we going to accept it as a normal, and that'll just get better? And which I kind of think it is, because, Canon and GoPro and Panasonic are putting out their ways to use their cameras as USB webcams. So you can get a better shot, but that, it almost shows us that you didn't need to take that drive. I mean, every time I talk to someone that lives in the LA area, they're always like, oh yeah, I can get places in a reasonable amount of time because I don't have to worry about everybody trying to get to their other place. So it's, there's some nice byproducts of that. I think the cool thing about using stock media is you can do it. You could also be creating stuff. So I've also made some content recently where it was a mix of stock footage and original content I'm making, but it was of products. So it didn't require any other people other than myself to put it together. It was just to bridge the gap of the stories. So maybe if I was doing some shots that had to fit in there that I just couldn't find the right stock for, or being creative and writing around the stock you have, that's kind of my tip for most of the time doing that. If you got stock media.
So generally it's like commercials actually works pretty well in this environment because so much of commercials is graphics, products, voiceovers,
basic general video imaging. Given of course the more specific your idea is, but if you want to find a gaveling, surely that's going to work. You want to find the exterior of a I don't know. There's lots of just situations where generalizing a shot is fine, and I think, the nice thing about a lot of stock footage is it's shot in bulk. So like, a smart producer, if they had an actor there to do some stock footage, that you might have like 9 variations of the same shot, or you have similar setups, but with different actors or different extras or whatnot in those. So I've found that it's like, oh, cool, I have this shot here, and I can actually have that same actor and they're just in a different situation over here. And it's like, I can put together almost a little narrative, but it's all about writing to what you have. Because if you're writing and then going looking for the stuff, when you find some of those things, you're going to pay through the ear, because really specific, hard to capture stuff, which would have been the empty street. You think about that now, if we're talking about, Times Square being empty.
Or the Strip.
Yeah, the Strip or places like that. Yeah. But then again, what are you showing? I mean, a lot of times it's hard to communicate with those things. Like,
you need those shots when you are going to make your, apocalyptic end of the world zombie movie. You take those shots and then, you use some VFX to add broken down cars and stuff.
Well, and the amount of stories that are coming out of this, all the documentaries that are coming after this are going to have a time where they're going to have to, maybe they want to set up the coronavirus. Hopefully everybody in the in the world is aware of the coronavirus.
Yeah. You brought up this topic of like, are people's expectations for production value reduced? Obviously, I think they are. Like, anyone who's watched any of the late night talk shows is used to the idea that
they're all doing it at home.
They're doing it at their home. They're using just like Zoom to talk to their guests. But actually, I think in the news category, this is particularly a good genre to produce video content for, in the sense that it doesn't really matter if it stands the test of time, because you don't watch news from 2 years ago. Well, maybe you will if there's like some crazy event, but
that's where the archival footage comes from. But I think you're totally right, and especially I actually found this watching the news is they can have a lot more experts. Like, instead of having that one expert that comes back after the break, they have 2 more, because you could have access to them, because you can call them. They could be anywhere and they can be on the news. So you don't have to just have the guy that lives in DC, because you're producing in DC, that knows how to talk about X, Y, or Z.
You don't need just the person who can make it into the studio.
Yeah, exactly. You can find a really good.
The news has been heading in this direction for a while, though. It seems like.
Oh, totally. Like the seeing, like I think the height of this was like Cuomo, the guy on CNN. Like, he has COVID. He's doing it from home, and all of his interviews are from other people at home. Like, I guess it's like the night shows, but even the newscaster is showing off that he's at home. Whereas the other newscasters, a lot of times, I saw this too, they put TVs behind them and they put stock video behind it so they looked like they're more on a set. And you could tell mostly by the lighting that they weren't. But, you know, I mean, even when they let you see a little behind the scenes on when they are on sets, it's like, I'm here with the director. They're in another room and they're remotely controlling all these cameras. Like, that's crazy. You know, you would have had a lot of complaints from unions and from all the different people if you tried to do that in normal times. I worry what that is telling some of the producers or those that hold the money that, you know, they're thinking, oh, maybe we don't need those people after all. But you know, the quality, if you want high quality, I mean, like the Tonight Show and those kinds of shows won't be able to continue to broadcast from home after this is all done. But right now it gives them the pass.
Yeah. You know, I think in the case of the late night shows, there is an element of, you know, of energy that comes from the live studio audience when Stephen Colbert tells a joke and everyone erupts in laughter. Yeah. You as a viewer find it funnier than when he's at home saying the same joke and there's nothing. It's silence.
No one would have end the laugh track wouldn't have been invented if that wasn't true. Right?
Yeah, exactly. So that will come back. That's just like a deep psychologically rooted thing. You know, we're programmed to,
and we're drawn to it, right? Yeah. So, you know, I mean, like it's amazing to think of like comedy without an audience. Well, Saturday Night Live did this. They did their whole, they had a whole episode all remote, and it was weird. When they did Weekend Update, they actually had more people join the Zoom call so that they could laugh at the jokes.
Yeah.
And it makes some sense because, like, sometimes if the punchline is dry or a little bit out of left field, it might not land unless you tell the people where to laugh.
Yeah. Yeah. So certainly Saturday Night Live is funnier when there's a live studio audience. And so they will have to go back to the live studio audience.
They have like live performances
for sure
on every episode, right?
Yeah. They just, it kind of equated, but it wasn't like at all close to being nearly good enough.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of this other stuff, they found a way to be good enough to keep doing it.
News could keep going, I think.
Totally.
The way it has been.
Maybe not report the actual anchor. I imagine they'll be in a studio, that sure. kind of thing. But, you know, more people I'm sure are setting up home studios. And, you know, if all the situations set up, you know, and you had an hour commute, why wouldn't you say, hey, I don't need, you know, just take my feed and talk to me through the year. You know, if they actually figure out those production, the technical aspects of how to achieve that. I mean, that's the biggest thing. My wife, working from home, they used the whole time to figure out how people could work from home and do all of the processes. And they did it because they had to, but now that they don't have to as much in our area, they're able to offer that as a way to deal with it. You know, hey, if some people want to work from home, we could save some money on some energy on you not being here. And of course, during this time, it's nice as well of like just less people being in the office is always a good thing. But I think that these are pushing times, but it'll be really interesting to see what everybody's willing to accept after it's over. I really like, I was talking earlier about like, it'll be really interesting to see how people respond to a vaccine in general when it's like, we have it. What are people going to do? Like, what's that moment feel like? Like, this isn't going to be like Man on the Moon, because it'll be just one man on the moon versus them being able to say the cure, you know, but, you know, surely all the politicians, whoever's in control when that comes through, is going to go, look, I have the cure. And they're going to be using media to do it. They communicate that stuff. But I think the technical side of achieving all this stuff is the difficult part. That's the stuff that has to be figured out, because the talent, I mean, I think that the late night shows show that off of like just having one person on the camera, not cutting away. It shows the ability of that on camera personality. Like, you know, if you're able to be interesting and funny and those kinds of things without outside help, that shows a lot to your talent. And I don't think everybody can do that. You know, I don't think everything is nearly as ubiquitous as that. But I mean, churches and all that kind of stuff, you know, what are they going to need their buildings for if they get everybody trained to watch TV for their church, you know?
Yeah. I'm not a church guy, as I've mentioned on this podcast before, but I have to imagine that, you know, churches will clearly go back to how they used to conduct their activities, just because there is a communal aspect there, people seeing each other face to face, you know.
Lots of,
televangelist sort of thing. But
holding hands.
yeah,
and-
people
or
want to
at
hold
least
hands and do whatever they do at
Yeah.
church, right? Like
Sing together
high
and all
five
that
and
stuff.
stuff.
High five.
They hug and stuff. But
May the Lord be with you.
Yeah.
Well, I think actually the argument on all that though is that like a lot of those were a lot of churches in general, and I'm really generalizing here, that they were struggling to reach younger people, and like I think this is a way to do that. And the thing is like why are we drawn to be together to do those things? Somewhat tradition, right? Like we've gotten used to it. It's what it means to go to church to people that are doing it. And this might be a time, depending on how long of a time it is, that this is what kind of like it took people to be like, oh, I can just watch this and then like type stuff. Like it kind of reminds me how bold you can be in a text message versus to someone's face. You know, there's also some passivity in that. They'll be like, I can do this and no one even needs to know that I'm religious. You know, like I know Mike is secretly watching church and then coming back and, you know, doesn't want to be seen there.
Joel
But,
Osteen.
yeah. But
I secretly watch church.
I secretly what a confession to make.
You know, though, speaking of like just sort of people realizing that they can behave a certain way or do certain things, you know, the one category that we haven't discussed that works really well, I think, for I'm going to call it pandemic safe production is like YouTube, right? People have been making YouTube videos and channels, highly successful channels out of their home alone for a long time.
Totally.
Now, what I hope happens is we're going to see the production values of other projects like documentaries and major Hollywood films start to inch down. I'm not saying I hope that they inch down, but what I hope is that as they inch down, people who are on YouTube will watch that and go, I can do that.
Yeah.
I can do that from my house. And then we will have like a new generation of people who, as the barrier to entry has fallen forcefully because of the pandemic, new creatives jump into the art.
I was listening to a conversation that was talking about that bad music creates new musicians, because as soon as someone hears something and like, I can do that, all of a sudden you just inspired that person to do that.
Yeah, like punk, right?
Yeah, exactly. So like you think of like even movies, you know, when you have the aha, I can do that, or I could do that, or you know, as soon as you see that you as a human could work towards that, that's the spark that leads to it. So it's like, I mean, of course, it also they were talking about like bad punk, like as 3 chords. That I could do 3 chords. I could write a song.
Well, it's
And
Ramones, right? Like one of the first punk bands, just super simple stuff.
Yeah, and the same thing. I think that's the approachability of YouTube, right? Is like, well, I could do that.
I feel like I see that with the late night shows. There has to be YouTubers who are watching Jimmy Kimmel right now or Stephen Colbert going, not only can I do that, I am doing that now better than them.
Totally. Well, and that's the total like payola on YouTube. Like, would Jimmy Fallon have any views at all if YouTube wasn't working with NBC to make sure those get views? You know, that they get to the trending and all that kind of stuff. Because some people don't find them funny at all, yet they're very and overly successful, more than even successful channels. I think that's what that support. I mean, that's when you have budgets and you have industry behind you.
But wouldn't that be something if the next host of the Tonight Show was a YouTuber? Like, we've already kind of seen this a little bit with what's her name?
Liza Koshy.
Liza Koshy got a TV deal.
You weren't talking about her.
No, I wasn't.
She does tons of interviews though.
I mean, that's the thing, is that's the format, right? The reaction video, that's somewhat of the opening monologue is somewhat of that, right? It's just talking about pop culture. So it's comedians, but like, that's the thing is like, like you see, like Jimmy Fallon was a comedian, right? But then like Conan, he was just a writer.
Yeah.
So it's like, if I'm a writer, maybe I can become a host, you know? So it's like, there isn't a direct line of like way to get there. And I think you're totally right. Of like, there'll be people that probably won't consider themselves a comedian that are funny and do this presentation thing, but aren't doing it to write jokes. They just happen to be, you know, funny people or good presentations or whatnot.
The person who I was thinking of is Lily Singh. So Lily Singh got a late night show on NBC, and I think it kind of crashed and burned.
It'd be a hard time to launch anything right now. I think that's the thing.
No, it didn't crash and burn. looks like it's might still be a thing.
But the point is that YouTube can be a platform for you to kick off of.
For sure. I mean, not only it has been for a while, but I think that YouTubers specifically are going to become even more inspired than ever to try to become the next Tonight Show host.
Well, YouTube is just so great because you can find anything you want, content-wise. Whatever you were looking for, it's there.
I mean, it might not be good, but it's surely there.
But it's a lot of it's so entertaining.
Yeah.
By the way, that's a slight tangent here. Apparently, you guys have heard of cow tipping?
Yes.
Apparently, cow tipping isn't real. And the basis of that is there's no videos of it on YouTube.
Can I pull up a quick search?
I believe it because cows are big. I mean, they're like 2,500 pounds, like a ton.
Yeah.
How are you going to possibly push them over?
Hold on.
How could cow tipping possibly
cows
exist and not be on YouTube?
Yeah.
Cows weigh...
My guess is 3,000 pounds.
A male, a bull is 2,400 pounds. A female cow, typically 1,600 pounds.
Oh, okay. Well, I was wrong.
I said a ton, so that's
that's you're close
right about there.
We're getting way off topic here. Okay, let's.
So back to it though. The one thing I think it might be a really exciting thing, and I hope if it plays out this way, this production can be made cheaper, is also that things are allowed to mature longer. Like we have an issue, especially in American media, of like killing something quick. There'll be shows that got just barely a few episodes, like didn't get barely enough time to work. And if the production's cheaper, they won't have to abandon as quickly. You know what I mean? Like that's half the time when you see a successful show, it's probably because it either got successful quickly or it was so cheap that they were able to continue to let it go until it got a following. And I think that would be really cool. If the same reason why Netflix is able to greenlight so many more films is because they're able to ditch the middleman, so the production and the direct to the person, so like more ideas that don't need to do well in the theater. They just need to do well over time on, Netflix's, little board there, on the interface. So
also Netflix they don't have the schedule. Like they don't have to figure only one show can run at Thursday at 8:00.
Yeah, exactly.
On TV. So what the broadcasters could do was far more limited than Netflix in that regard. Netflix can make as many shows as they want if they can keep the cost in check.
And the other thing about the TV, which is really interesting, is if you're talking about the rating of a new show, it's based on the episode when it comes off. So if you watch a show on Friday at 8:00 at night, that rating is based on the viewership of that episode, not when it's replayed. But on Netflix, it's about, I'm sure the thing they're looking at is just how many times people watch it. And so, if someone watches it Tuesday at 5, it still counts towards that launch number versus like the syndicated thing that, you're not getting it. You're getting a number on that time slot, but not as a show as a whole, because of course it's not fair to judge, a show on Thursday at 8:00 to a show that's at noon on Tuesday. There's not even that viewership there. Whereas it's anytime on Netflix or Disney Plus or any of those.
We talked about the types of production that is more favorable for remote production. So we said YouTube, documentary, interviews. What about the technical aspect? I know, Chris, you kind of touched on it with the project that you just worked on. So doing this on the technical side. Yeah,
the interesting part about all of this is that we're having to be like somewhat health, like experts too, on making the call of like, what is the right way to show, is just wearing a mask, is that good? Is everybody got to wear gloves? We don't have catering. If we don't, then is everybody staying hydrated and got their food,
or catering, but only with prepackaged foods.
Things. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Just those technical things are just like the hoops you got to jump through to make it safe. And then the expectations are the next thing of like, then what can we do with those restraints?
Well, I think in the term of technology here, we're really talking about what can we do to limit the number of people that need to be on set, and then those that are on set, try to minimize their physical contact with one another.
Yeah, totally. But it's like, these are things that to make a movie you never had to worry about. I mean, maybe you had to worry about someone getting sick, but not in any different way than any other job of just not having someone to do that. But you didn't have to worry about that one person getting sick and killing some of the crew or those kinds of things.
Yeah.
So there's, the film industry was not making choices based on people's health much or at all,
Certainly not their mental health.
Yeah. And so those things, those are really new thoughts into the industry. And I think there's some really great places that are giving us examples. And I know that the industry as a whole and the unions are trying to come to some kind of answer for this. I think we have on here a really cool, and this is the first thought that I had, in which is they're doing it, which is the Tyler Perry that's in Atlanta, right?
Yeah, they're actually starting today is what it's planned to start production for I believe it's season 2 of his show Sisters.
Well, I mean, what they're doing is, one, the location is so large that they have on site, I imagine dormitories, hotel, I have no idea. But the people are all getting tested. They're pretty much sequestering themselves to just being there for the whole production. That's how I thought any of this stuff would get done. That's how the sports teams are dealing with it. Is like, we're just going to isolate all the players or all the people involved and make sure we don't have outside influence coming in, meaning being able to test everybody that comes in. And you can pretty much have a closed system with that, hopefully. But
Right.
Everybody has to be bought into that. Not everybody's going to say, you can limit me to what I do at lunch or do it on my own time.
So how does that translate to the technology though, right?
Of like technically achieving it.
Like the equipment that facilitates remote shooting or socially distanced
If you have a
shooting.
camera person, you only have one person handle.
Yeah, exactly.
handle a camera.
Exactly. So maybe ditch the I don't know. Most of our listeners are probably not doing this, but if you have someone pulling focus.
Well, yeah. I mean, the hard thing is a lot of it would take investment because it might not be a tool you have. So a remote follow focus would be great, and having that on a wireless HDMI or a wireless monitor somewhere, so you can do that. I mean, and they already have that. That already exists. It's just more of having access to it. I think the thing that I didn't really think a lot about, but part of this interview, the guy that we interviewed down in LA is a DP and has lots of equipment, and some jobs you show up and the equipment's there. Other jobs you supply equipment and you have a different rate based on that. How do you say your equipment's clean? How do you justify? So will there be certification of that? I mean, I've shot in a sterile surgical room, and like we spent an hour just wiping everything down, and then they told us, they put a square on the ground. They said that's where you can film from. And I think of that kind of thing of like, we're going to have to sterilize our equipment. So there are, just like the hospitals are doing and others, is there's going to be systems and protocols we need to do to disinfect our equipment to prepare for those situations if you are, say, sequestering, but also just the idea of keeping the equipment clean. And it's so hard because we don't know how long stuff lives really on equipment.
Well, fortunately, it seems that scientists are telling us that COVID doesn't really transmit too much based on surfaces. It's really about exchanging breaths and, what do they call them? Heavy droplets or something from sneezes and coughs. The first thing I thought was maybe it's time to stop using lavaliers or have people lav themselves. It always happens in every shoot where the person who's handling sound approaches the talent and is there with them face to face for a good minute while they figure out the lavalier.
Yeah.
Maybe that's no longer a thing.
Don't need it.
The other thing, which actually Susan, our art director, mentioned this morning, is she heard that some productions for sex scenes are using mannequins. So two human beings don't have to be that close together.
They have those robots now that look like exactly, you know what I'm talking about.
But I wonder if you could do the same thing just like with over-the-shoulder shots, right? Like,
why would you become
dialogue.
an actor if you can't be in the sex scenes? That's just...
You can be in them, just not with other people.
That's not really sex, is it?
No.
Okay, we're gonna get dinged here for the subject matter.
But yeah, you could totally shoot a lot of over-the-shoulder shots where the shoulder that you're shooting over is just like kind of out of focus, and you can tell that it's like the clothes that the other person was wearing, but that's about
Or
it.
just make a whole movie with mannequins.
They have a movie about that, right? Wasn't it called Mannequin?
Well, they come to, but there's also a Saturday Night Live skit that they are using mannequins to touch things. So it's like instead of having someone touches a hot pot and all of a sudden this fake plastic arm comes in there and slaps it around and does something. But I think if you can have a stand-in, that's great. I mean, going back to the Irishman, maybe we'll be doing this in a way of mitigating risk. Like, okay, we're going to have an actor, come and do that. I don't really know.
Shooting outdoors is another technique, which probably is pretty, if you can.
Shooting outdoors.
Yeah, I don't know if that's technology, but.
Or we can have more movies like Castaway where the main character is just friends with an inanimate object.
Or there's only one character.
And there's only one character.
And that's the writing around what that's the creative way to get around, hey, I'm going to have a story, but I know that I'm going to have limited people be able to be together. Write a story that can be produced in that. I mean, I always think about, like, whenever you have an idea, it's great to be able to go, let's build the Titanic and shoot scenes inside it. But only James Cameron gets to do that, only huge things. So it's like, okay, how do we achieve that same kind of idea? And it's through the camera tricks we've always had. So the over the shoulders, it's the a forced perspective. So maybe you won't be 5 feet from each other. You'll be further than that, but through forced perspective, it looks like you're near each other. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of things that we can fall back on to try to make it. The hard thing is it's going to slow down production. All of this is likely to slow down production just because it's different. You know what I mean? Like, hey, you now have to consider protocols while you're doing this, not just grab that lens and put it on, or grab that mic and put it on somebody. There's a protocol of me, like, I'm going to walk up to you, set this stuff here, you get it set on, and then I'll bring you a mask and I will adjust it on your shirt, and I'll be wearing gloves, and then we'll both, sanitize ourselves, or whatever it is. But it's just coming up with those protocols and then remembering to do them, because it's just so hard to do your normal daily life and not fall back into habits. And, this is the habitual of wanting to be close to people is, I think, instinctually it's in our instincts, it's in our blood. It's what drives us to make more people. And I think that getting over that is difficult. And I think that's what a lot of people's reaction to these things, it's like, I feel so different having to do this. And it's so hard to accept that we're just going to have to accept difference for a while.
Or you can just adapt and film remotely. Like that one I was telling you guys about, the Untitled horror movie. It's totally remote. Everything was done remotely. Filming, pre-production. The storyline is interesting, but it's obviously written for this type of situation.
Totally.
Where these actors can't be together in person, but they still completed it. And it's an interesting plot.
Have you seen the movie?
No. I don't know if it's out yet, but
is it actually called Untitled Horror Movie?
Yeah.
Because I looked for that, and quite frankly, there was some really bad Untitled horror movies on YouTube that were not at all. And so I was like, over the last couple months, and still nothing on YouTube at least.
Yeah, no, that's the title of it. And from what I've looked at the screenshot, they're all doing like a video chat or like Zooming. And their show is getting canceled, so they're trying to make their own horror film. And while they're doing their research, they accidentally summon like an evil spirit that starts plucking them off one by one. But yeah, every part of it was done remotely. It's directed by Nick Simon.
That reminds me of another Saturday Night Live, one of their skits. They did it. It was like the awkwardness of a Zoom call. So there was these two ladies that were part of it that were just didn't understand technology. So they kept on, like, all of a sudden they'd be too close. Then all of a sudden, they're just barely their head to be shooting over. And then all of a sudden, one would fart and not realize that everybody can hear them. And, just all the funny things of that interaction. And I think that's the best way to handle it. If you know your limitations, is just write around them, because it's going to be a whole lot easier just to write a plot to make this believable.
That reminds me, we were talking just the other day about how nice it would be to be able to shoot talent who are wearing masks, because then they don't have to say their lines right. You can just ADR over the top of it. But the main point here is that you can tell a good story about like the circumstances that we all live in today, and maybe there's a way to actually like turn lemons into lemonade and make it more interesting than it, or at least in this case, more convenient to produce than it would normally be.
I mean, think about like the modern day Scream, or like the the stranger downstairs and you're upstairs, those kinds of things. That could be a bunch of security cameras all over the which are just GoPros in the corner, I imagine. Lots of Zoom calls or doorbell looking video, and and how many people do you actually need to shoot that if you can stay on the lo-fi side of it? Buy into it being all these security cameras, or a webcam over here caught it, or the story, if it's written right or around what your abilities are. And honestly, that's a good trick to use always, because I've had clients come up with really big ideas, and you're like, you don't have the budget for that. But if we just get creative with how to do that, how we are doing it, which is like every horror movie up to like into the 90s is like it's all about doing it off camera. So it's just implying that it's happening, and then you don't have to use, you don't have to do anything high tech.
Have you guys seen the movie Moon?
Moon. No.
It's kind of a smaller movie, but it's about a guy who's on a moon base. And I don't want to give it away. Big twist, but he's up there alone.
Was he not on the moon? He just happened to be in the desert.
No, it's not that obvious. Totally worth watching, but a great movie if you like science fiction. But at any rate, he's the only one there. He's like the only character in the movie.
That works.
But it reminds me of it just makes me think that someone should make a movie now about, an individual. If someone actually does this, by the way, I want a credit somewhere.
Just an IMDb credit. That's all he wants.
But
Associated.
There's got to be telling a story of someone who is staying in their home. They're really, on top. They're really like conservative about, never leaving their house. They don't want to get contaminated. Maybe they have a health condition. It's unsafe for them to leave. So they're only communicating the outside world through their phone. They're watching TV. And it's like, what is actually happening in the outside world?
There is kind of a movie that did come out.
Oh,
that
really?
Was
what
like
is it?
that. I think it's with, is it Amy Adams, or I think it's Amy Adams, and she has this
she's
like
like
psychological
agoraphobic?
condition. I think, agoraphobic. Like she does not want to be in contact with people. She stays in her apartment. She can see the people across the way, and it basically she thinks that the wife gets murdered, and it's like this big murder mystery type thing, like thriller. But she is like that. She's cooped up in her apartment, doesn't want to leave.
Okay, well,
So
I guess that's the same
I'm sorry
movie.
to say that
It's the same
idea,
movie.
I think, has been executed
See,
already.
I see it with a little twist. Is like, and
It's
this
kind of
is
like Rear Window, also, isn't it?
I
Show your boyfriend that one, by the way.
Rear Window. Yeah, that's
Rear Window?
That's a
Hitchcock
great classic. Yeah, you could do the same idea. I got this feeling a little bit of like the first time I got deliveries, and the delivery drivers were obviously did it pre-COVID, so they're like standing near the door, so they didn't quite get the like no hands delivery or contactless delivery, and it's like, hey man, can you go away so I can have my food? Open up the door. Bye. You go. You're scared of so every person that comes near, you're like, you could be carrying it. You're all of a sudden you start getting real paranoid about the interactions you have, and counting how many people you've seen or been nearby or that kind of thing, and that could be a huge suspense idea, right?
I think also.
Sorry, that movie was called The Woman in the Window, by the way, with Amy Adams, the one
Which
I was
sounds
just
like
explaining.
a remake of.
Yeah, sounds like Rear Window.
Rear
I
Window.
feel like I may have seen that movie, but maybe I'm just
It came
thinking of Rear
out,
Window.
this year, 2020. May.
I haven't seen it.
Yeah, well, Hitchcock's been dead for a while.
But yeah, with everything that's going on with like conspiracy theorists and all that, I can just imagine that there's a story there where, this person is paranoid. The news isn't what they say, what they think it is, and aliens attack. You guys see that movie? Oh man, we are really off track. What was that movie? This Is the End or something with James Franco?
Oh my gosh, that movie. Yes.
Yeah, so that's like the same thing. They're stuck in their house and
That's
the
the
world has
most
come crashing down around
ridiculous
them.
movie
Have you seen that, Chris?
ever.
I haven't.
You got to see it.
Oh my God. It's so obnoxious. It's so obnoxious.
It's not the one that Seth Rogen wrote. That's like all the.
Yeah,
It's
it's
Seth
them and all
Rogen
their
and
friends
James
playing
Franco
themselves.
and-
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No, I haven't seen it. I
Yeah,
should
good
see it
for
because
you.
I love those guys, but
Oh my
I love
gosh,
how
I keep
absurd
thinking
they
of all
are.
the inappropriateness of
Oh,
that
totally.
movie.
Loved it. It's such a good movie.
it's like every Seth Rogen movie is like.
Oh, but I feel like it's over the top. Some of the stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know if Seth Rogen has any limits. I think it's kind of enjoyable.
Yeah.
What did I see him on? He was on it was like a DC event that was like a charity event, and it was for Hillary Clinton when she was running, and he was really, it was not like your normal like black tie event in DC, and he didn't hold anything back, being just swearing and being all the rest, being vulgar, and I was really surprised by that. I was like, are you just going for it? And I guess that's what he's known for doing. But
yeah, pretty much. Did we get through all the topics, Haley?
Yeah, I think so.
I'm looking at the list here.
On safety. I mean, that's pretty intuitive now. We know masks, sanitizing, social distancing.
I think the real big thing is for any of these video productions, you got to keep the crew small. Like, what do they say? Like, don't gather in groups of more than 10 people. That is difficult to do for a lot of the big budget Hollywood pictures. Like Tyler Perry is having trouble with that, and that's why he's got this compound and he's testing everyone, and they live there for the duration of the project. You know
what I think you should do is it would be real easy. Is you just hire all anti-maskers, because they don't really care anyway.
Yeah, so they don't believe it.
Yeah, so you just everybody that's on set doesn't really believe it exists anyway, and then you're safe.
Yeah,
then no one gets it.
Our listeners here.
Yeah, well, that's the key. That's the key, right?
If you're not wearing a mask, I hope I offended you.
Yeah, really, masks should not be a political thing, but at the same time, our rule. Chris starts talking about politics. We segue to end the show.
Yeah, is this really politics? My God.
It's not really. I guess that's it.
Hey, stay safe. I hope that everybody listening to this is, doing their thing and staying healthy. We really appreciate everybody that watches this, and we know we love those around us and want them to be healthy and safe, and we want to extend that to anyone listening to this as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of uncertainty about what's going to happen with not only the economy at large, but the video production and filmmaking industry. And I don't know if anyone really knows what's going to happen long term. But what I do know with certainty is that thirst, that hunger for visual communication is only going to increase. So hopefully that means more opportunities for all of us, right?
And in the idea of being patient, there will be a solution. We will see it in humanity, and eventually we won't be dealing with this anymore. So hopefully this is just a temporary problem. We don't know how temporary, but let's if we can just hold out for long enough, we might just be able to get back to normal.
That's a very nice sentiment, Chris. Have you been watching church?
Have you been watching church?
No, but I do think good guys always win.
Yeah.
I feel like I need to say this for those who might call us out. We are 6 feet apart from each other.
Yeah,
in this room.
Yeah, on screen we're not.
On
like,
screen,
it really depends on the size of your screen.
Actually, someone would be like, "But you guys aren't wearing your masks, but we are 6 feet apart."
Yeah.
Actually, if you're watching, if it's just the screen, we could be at different parts of the country or different parts of the world, right?
Yeah.
We don't have a single shot.
I'm actually not here.
Yeah. We're actually more than 6 feet, and we measured it before we'd even give it a chance, because
that's how it goes.
Yep.
Okay. Thanks
safe.
everyone for watching and listening, and we'll catch you next time.
See ya.
Thanks everyone for listening. For Chris Monlux, Haley LaPlante, and everyone here at Videomaker, I'm Mike Wilhelm, and you've been listening to the Videomaker podcast. We'll catch you next time.